Living as we do on the corner of Milton Road and Velzer Avenue, we're well used to hearing ambulances rushing past, particularly in recent months. It was a big surprise, though, the week before last to see not one, not two, but 3 fire engines racing past on their way up the Eastern Road and off to Dorset, where foolish people have been lighting supermarket barbecues in the Forest of Wareham. Later that day, it was distressing to see on the news that about 15 football pitches of that beautiful forest had been destroyed by fire. Fire can be terrifyingly destructive. We all remember the story of the depraved cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, how they were destroyed by fire sent by God. Fire can be a sign of God's judgment, though at other times it can be a sign of his sheer majesty, his glory. Moses, standing before the burning bush, was aware that he was in the presence of God. And that same fire was part of his later vision of God on Mount Sinai when he received the 10 Commandments. The fire of God can also be a purifying force. In the case of the prophet Isaiah, he was in the temple to pray when the place was suddenly filled with smoke, and his lips were touched by a burning coal from the altar, a sign that his sin was forgiven and that he was now called to serve God. Another Old Testament prophet, Malachi, speaks of the coming of the Messiah as like a refiner's fire, the fire used by goldsmiths to separate the dross from the pure metal. John the Baptist, sometimes described as the last of the great prophets, told those who came to him for water baptism that one would come who would baptize them with the Holy Spirit and fire. And Jesus himself used that image of fire in this way in one of his sermons to a large crowd, speaking of the hypocrisy of the religious establishment of his day. He said, "I came to bring fire to the earth." One very recent version of the New Testament by an American Orthodox biblical scholar translates that sentence as, "I came to fling fire upon the earth." I like that. Tomorrow in the Eucharist we'll hear the account of the first Pentecost, how fire is once again at the heart of the drama, combined with a rushing mighty wind, the same elements which caused such destruction in the Forest of Wareham. To me, the Pentecostal fire is once again a sign of God's judgment, a sign that the world was to be purified of corruption, injustice, enmity, and lust for power. But it's so much more even than all of that. It's a sign of the burning love of God for his creation and for every human being on the earth. Jesus had promised to his disciples that this spirit of love, the Spirit of God, would be poured out upon them after he had returned to his Father's glory. And at Pentecost, that promise was fulfilled. The disciples became apostles, messengers, sent out to share the good news to all the earth, symbolized by their sudden ability to communicate that news to people of so many different nations. They were anointed, so to speak, with a new spirit, a spirit which gave them courage to face every hardship and persecution, a spirit which fired them up to turn the world upside down, as some of their enemies in Thessalonica described it. I can't help thinking that the events of the past 3 months have also turned the world upside down. And it's become clear, hasn't it, that beyond all else, our world needs a fresh outpouring of that Spirit of God, the Spirit of love, joy and peace. So as we sing in the hymn, Shine, Jesus, shine, blaze, Spirit, blaze, fill this land with the Father's glory.